Welcome back to the Advisor Growth Lab. Since this is still a brand new show, I want to slow things down today and explain why I'm even here doing this and why I think I can speak into this world in a way that's actually useful for you. Because I know what it feels like when someone starts talking about marketing, technology, or growth, and you think, okay, but who is this person and why should I listen? So I want to tell you how I ended up here, not as a highlight reel, just the real story. Because this didn't start with a business plan. It started with a curiosity, a lot of trial and error, and a bunch of conversations with advisors who are just trying to make things work. Growing up, I wasn't especially connected to money. I didn't grow up thinking about investing, retirement, or portfolios. I went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville and graduated in 2008 with a marketing degree, which, if you remember, that time was pretty much the worst time possible to step into the job market. The financial crisis had just hit, companies were cutting back, and nobody really knew what the future was going to look like. I eventually got a decent job, but on the side, I was always building things. Websites, photos, videos, event promotions, anything digital that helped people tell their story. That was always the part I loved, figuring out how technology and creativity could bring people together. At one point, I was working at a tool company and managing their websites. And I remember this quiet moment where I realized I didn't want my whole life to be a desk and a paycheck. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to experience something different. I wanted to stretch myself. So I did something that, at the time, felt a little crazy. I moved to Ukraine. I went to Kiev to teach English and freelance for companies back in the US. I didn't have some massive plan. I just knew I wanted to get outside the bubble I was in. While I was there, I kept doing what I knew how to do, building websites, shooting photos, creating videos, helping businesses communicate. After a couple of months, I realized Moscow had more opportunities, so I got a visa, hopped on a train, and just went. So I was living in Russia, working marketing jobs, freelancing, building websites, doing video and photography, basically doing whatever I could to keep moving forward in a completely new environment. And that's where everything changed. One day I got an inquiry from a financial advisor who was also living there. He needed a video for his practice, and somehow I was basically the only American he could find who could do both photography and videography and spoke English. So I shot the video. Then I helped him with his website. Then I helped him with a few other things. And before I really realized it, I was inside the financial advisor world. At some point, he explained something to me that really stuck. He told me that this industry wasn't behind because advisors didn't care about growth or technology. It was behind because compliance and regulation made it one of the hardest industries in the world to move quickly in. Every email, every piece of content, every message has to be reviewed, archived, and supervised, as you know. You don't get to just experiment the way other businesses do. That was a big moment for me because suddenly a lot of things made sense. Why advisor websites looked the way they did, why content felt generic, and why so many advisors were cautious about putting themselves out there. It wasn't fear, it was structure. Between his mentorship, his referrals, and just being inside that world, I slowly built up enough clients and confidence to start Move Advisor Consulting full time. We launched books, we launched podcasts, we did videos, we built websites, we ran campaigns, and through all of that work, I started building relationships with advisors all over the country, mostly over the phone. Not in person, not at conferences, just real conversations one advisor at a time. Those conversations became my education. I learned how firms actually run, what's hard, what breaks, where things get messy. I learned how compliance shapes everything. I learned how hard it is to communicate clearly when everything has to be approved, archived, and supervised. And I also saw something else. I saw how many good advisors struggled to be visible. Not because they weren't great at what they did, but because the system around them made it hard to show up in the modern world. Websites were outdated, content was generic, technology was disconnected. Advisors were spending time trying to keep systems running instead of serving clients. That's where my philosophy really started to form. I don't think most advisors need more hustle. I think they need better infrastructure. They need systems that make it easier to communicate. They need technology that supports their workflow instead of getting in the way. They need marketing that actually reflects who they are instead of turning them into a logo. Back in Moscow, the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, and my wife and I had to move to Georgia for a while, get things stabilized, and figure out what was next. Eventually, we made our way back to the U.S. and settled in Lakewood Ranch, Florida. And along the way, the websites, campaigns, and content we helped create brought in millions and millions of dollars in assets for advisors. Real people, real families, real money moving because someone found the right advisor online. That's where everything came full circle for me. Because what I realized is that I get to do two things I care deeply about at the same time. I get to work with technology and creativity, which I've always loved, and I get to amplify people's understanding of money by helping advisors reach more people. I don't give financial advice myself, but every advisor I help get more visible is helping more families make better decisions about their lives. That's the ripple effect. And that's what this podcast is really all about. helping good advisors get found in a world that's moving faster and getting noisier every year. So now you know who's behind the mic. Thank you for being here, but let's keep going.